This was inevitable for the New York Islanders, as so far every single move Mathew Barzal has made has felt incredibly seamless. It was bound to happen that there would be a more rocky transaction, and that is the case now as Maxim Tsyplakov has filed for salary arbitration. We're going to discuss what that means on this episode of Islanders Digest. I know there are a lot of fans who are confused when it comes to arbitration in the NHL, so we're going to explain what that means both for the players and for the Islanders, and we're also going to talk about Mark Gatcombe's salary situation, as even though he has not filed for salary arbitration, this definitely plays a role in this decision. Before we get into that, I do want to thank all of you who have subscribed to the channel. We're getting so close to 1,500 subscribers, which is honestly insane to think about, especially considering how much the channel has grown recently, plus 600 subscribers in the past month. That is absolutely absurd, so I appreciate all of your support. Now let's really get into the nitty-gritty details about salary arbitration. I think this is one of the most misunderstood types of transaction in the NHL. Basically, what's happened is Mathew Barzal and Tsyplakov's agents cannot agree on how much he deserves to get paid moving forward. Likely both next season or even on a longer-term contract, because I do think in this case, the Islanders and Tsyplakov are going to end up not actually going to an arbitrator. They're going to meet around the middle and probably add a couple years to that contract, because typically contracts awarded in arbitration are only 1 year. Although in this case, considering the player has just asked for arbitration outright, I think the Islanders have the option to go either 1 or 2 years. So considering that I think the arbitrator is probably going to side more with the Islanders, I'm going to assume this is going to be a contract that is 2 years. If something does not get done that is more long-term, which I think really fits what Tsyplakov wants, and really what the Islanders want better. I think they both want to go a bit longer term, or not too long, but I think a 3 or 4 year deal makes a bit more sense here. It's just about how much Tsyplakov gets paid per year, and I think Tsyplakov is a really interesting player. But generally, how this is going to work is Tsyplakov and his agent are going to present a number to an arbitrator. The Islanders are going to present a much lower number to that arbitrator. And then unlike other sports where the arbitrator has to pick either one or the other, the arbitrator can basically look at Tsyplakov's stats and pick something in the middle, and then that will be his contract next year. So people saying for the Islanders, oh, just let Tsyplakov walk or stuff like that, or don't let Tsyplakov go for nothing, that can't happen. That is not this scenario. In fact, I think the only scenario where the Islanders can allow Tsyplakov to walk in this situation is if he signs for over $3.5 million, or if the arbitrator awards over $3.5 million, then I think the Islanders can elect to walk away from that contract. Though I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think even if he was awarded $3.5 million, the Islanders would just accept it. But now let's talk about this situation and why it's a bit complicated when it comes to the Islanders. So you see right here, they have $3.9 million, and you're probably thinking to yourself, that should be more than enough to sign Tsyplakov. And it is. Realistically, I think Tsyplakov is going to be looking at a contract in the range of 2.5 to 3, probably closer to 2.5. We're going to look at his stats in a second, and I think Tsyplakov's stats really put him in a tough situation when it comes to this negotiation. He's obviously in a better situation than Emil Heineman, who really just had to accept any offer the Islanders gave him, and that's why they got such a good contract on Heineman, who I think is actually going to really outperform that contract. With Tsyplakov, he has some leverage, but there's also some things that work against him, which is going to make this interesting. But from the Islanders' point of view, I think the reason why they are being so reluctant to just give Tsyplakov what he wants is while they have $3.9 million, they also have to worry about signing Mark Gatcombe, which obviously is only going to cost about less than 1 million of that money, likely under 900,000. So realistically, they should be easily able to give Tsyplakov $3 million. But I think Mathew Barzal and the Islanders really want to get that number a little bit lower, because if they spend directly up to the cap, they're not going to accrue any bonus money as the year goes on. The salary cap in the NHL is a little complicated, where if you don't spend up the cap, you can accrue that money throughout the years. Throughout the year, it ends at the end of the season. And where this is important is a lot of playoff teams, they use that to acquire more players at the deadline. And obviously, I don't think the Islanders are going to be acquiring players at the deadline. But where this is important for the Islanders is that there are a couple players on this roster who I believe are going to be in line for bonuses this season. In the past, spending up to the cap really has not been a huge deal for the Islanders, because if you spend up to the cap, it does not really matter, except when you have young players on bonus contracts, or old players for that matter. You can sign bonuses once a player is over 35. then if you don't have the money during that cap year, then it gets rolled over to the next year. I think that is something the Islanders are definitely trying to avoid. And for young players, most of these bonuses are performance laden. And when you consider players like Schaefer and might be playing for the Islanders, and Shabanov will definitely be playing for the Islanders, these are two players that can do a lot of damage on bonus money. I think Shabanov in particular can earn up to $3.5 million from the Islanders if he hits every single bonus. And some of those are extreme, involving him winning the Conn Smythe in the playoffs, but others involve him winning Rookie of the Year awards, or even just having a certain amount of goal or assists. Well, I don't think he's going to win a Rookie of the Year award. You never know, especially with a wide open year like this. I think Demidov from the Montreal Canadiens is the favorites, but you want to be careful when it comes to having enough money to pay out those bonuses so you don't go into the next season. That's when Tsyplakov really comes in, because if the Islanders can get him for under $2.5 million, then they really don't have an issue with this. But if they don't have any cap space throughout the season accruing, then it becomes an issue. And for Tsyplakov, I think this is a really interesting case, because he didn't have a great year. I mean, going into the season, I think there's a lot of excitement from Tsyplakov, especially considering he scored 31 goals in the KHL last season. And first of all, this is a sign. This is a reason why you can't just assume Shabanov is going to come in and be absolutely dominant. But just looking at what he did last year, 10 goals, 25 assists, Tsyplakov is a third liner, and I think he can be more than that. But I think one thing we have to be really careful as fans when we're talking about Tsyplakov is he was one of the younger players on the Islanders last year, so we assume, oh, well, he's going to get better every single season. He's a young player. That's what happens. He's going to grow. And while I do think Tsyplakov can be better next season, I really do, gotta keep in mind, he's 26 years old. He's not like Holmstrom or one of these guys like Callum Ritchie who is young and just finding his game as a hockey player. This is a grown man who, while very skilled, I think he's already hit somewhere near his ceiling. And while I do think he can score more goals for the Islanders next season and overall be a more reliable player, I don't know if Tsyplakov has quite a high ceiling compared to other players, and as a result, I'm really reluctant to give him money that he didn't earn out of the hopes that he can grow into a contract. With Holmstrom, I was very willing to give him a bit more money, just understanding that he's going to get better every single season. Tsyplakov, I don't think that's necessarily the case, and while I do think what he did last season was worthy of a good amount of money, I don't think he's worth... Honestly, I don't even think he's worth $3 million. I think while it's fair, I think it's a little bit steep, especially considering that he's also a player where he's only had one season. It's not a big track record. I think that's definitely going to cost him when it comes to arbitration. If he even goes to arbitration, I think the most likely scenario is Tsyplakov and the Islanders settle somewhere around 2.75, and then add a couple years, so 3 years, 2.75. I think that would be the sweet spot for both sides. It would give the Islanders that bit of bonus money they want accruing throughout the year. And from Tsyplakov's point of view, it's fair, considering he spent most of last season on the third and fourth line. I know he's obviously going to argue in arbitration that he's a second-line player, and you can make the argument, oh, yeah, well, the Islanders didn't really give him that time. But from the other point of view, he didn't earn it, and his numbers don't suggest that he is a top two-line player. And if he was on another team such as the Islanders, there really would not, another team other than the Islanders, I don't think there would really even be a conversation that he deserved to be in the top two lines. I think it was just more of a thing that he kind of fit well with Brock Nelson and Palmieri, better than Engvall at least. And that's not really saying much. I do think Tsyplakov is going to get a contract with the Islanders. Again, I don't think they're actually going to end up going for arbitration. This is just a way that he guarantees that he's going to have some negotiating power, because if Tsyplakov didn't do this and then the Islanders didn't offer him what he wanted, then he was pretty much stuck, and his only option left would be holding out, which does not hold a lot of leverage when the other option basically is just going back to the KHL. I do think Tsyplakov wants to make things work in the NHL. I think this is going to work just fine with the Islanders. I don't think he's going anywhere. They're just going to have the arbitrators show them what dollar amount is, or the threat of arbitration will convince the Islanders to up their offer up a little bit, and that will be the end of this. I do quickly want to also point out Mark Gatcomb is another player who needs a contract for the Islanders, and he's a player who I think smartly did not file for arbitration. While I love Mark Gatcomb, he's only played 39 games in the NHL, And while he scored 8 goals, his shooting percentage was very high. I'm really curious to see what the Islanders give Mark Gatcomb. Unfortunately, I really think the recent moves they've made this offseason kind of make it that he's no longer a guarantee to really play any games for the club. While previously I thought Mark Gatcomb was going to be a full-time fourth liner for the Islanders. I really hope he does get some time, but just looking at some of the other players they got, especially considering that I think Tsyplakov might be moved down the line. I just don't know if Mark Gatcomb is going to have a role at all. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. What do you think is a fair value for Tsyplakov? And then what do you think about Gatcomb? What do you think is a fair contract for him? Honestly, for Gatcomb, I think it might be more of a thing of even taking less than his qualifying offer if it means he has a one-way contract. I think that would be fair for both sides. But we'll see what happens. I don't have too much concern about any of these contracts. Again, I think the Islanders do have a good amount of money. Obviously, you're going to want to have a bit more salary cap. But in the worst case, you can always move a player to free up that cap space. I think having these young guys around, even though they're not too young, I think it makes more sense than other players on this team, such as Pajot. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.